What's happening, guys? So let's talk about this situation right now we've got with Anthony Joshua and concerning who's going to be his replacement opponent. As you guys know, obviously last week Jarrell Miller tested positive for multiple PEDs, and yeah, he's supposedly facing a 2-year ban, I think it is. So he's obviously not going to be in the ring with Joshua, and there's been a bit of speculation about who the opponent's going to be. As I record this video, I don't think there's been an official opponent. I don't think it's been made official. I mean, but the front runners are Michael Hunter is one guy that's I believe a front runner, but another front runner is Manuel Char, the WBA regular champion, and Manuel Char seems to be quite vocal, as does his management team. You know, they seem to really want to get that fight. So yeah, those are the front runners. It's either going to be Michael Hunter or Manuel Char. There've been other guys mentioned, like Derek Chisora has been mentioned, who just had a fight last weekend, and I believe a few people have mentioned Dillian White, but he has a fight coming up, so that's obviously not going to happen. And one that a lot of people are pushing for is Luis Ortiz. That's the one that most people seem to want to see in the ring with Joshua. I don't know why. I think that fight's an absolute flipping mismatch. I d- I don't think Luis Ortiz would last 2 rounds with Anthony Joshua, if I'm being honest. I think that's a horrible style matchup for him. Um, but the reason why I wanted to talk about this, man, is because it's funny, isn't it? You know, when we hear these guys, and you guys know who the usual suspects are, who are still so insistent to this day that this is somehow a golden age of heavyweight boxing, and how that there's just such a strong pool of talent, and how these guys are so amazing. You know, it's funny to me how Jarrell Miller is out of the question, and yet they're finding it so hard to find a quality opponent for Joshua, and somebody who, will make all the fans happy. An opponent who everybody will think is a worthy challenger to step in at short notice. It's funny to me how in this golden age, in this amazing, such a strong age for heavyweight boxing, the front runners to step in the ring with Anthony Joshua is one, a cruiserweight, Michael Hunter, who got destroyed by Alexander Usyk, and the other one is Manuel Char. Now, this is the same Manuel Char. Like, get this, guys. This is the same Manuel Char who was stopped in 4 rounds by a 42-year-old Vitaly Klitschko on the verge of retirement. Those are the front runners to face Anthony Joshua in his. I don't know how many title defenses Anthony Joshua have. How many title defenses has he had? Like what, 5 or 6? So let's say his sixth or seventh title defense is going to be potentially against one of those guys, and Manuel Char is one of the front runners. Again, the same Manuel Char who, at his prime, when he was an undefeated top contender, was stopped in 4 rounds by a 42-year-old Vitaly Klitschko, man. And he's the best they can come up with. Him and um, him and Michael Hunter are the best they could come up with at short notice. Yeah, this really is the golden age of heavyweight boxing, isn't it, man? I mean, I mentioned one of the other possibilities was Derek Chisora. Sky have talked about him potentially stepping in and being the replacement. Yeah, Derek Chisora again, another guy that a 41-year-old Vitaly Klitschko dominated and schooled. It's just hilarious to me, man. Like this heavyweight division right now, and the narrative and the absolute nonsense that keeps getting spun about this division, man. I mean, one of the other guys they mentioned was Kubrat Pulev, who, again, another guy that got absolutely sparked by an old Vladimir Klitschko. But this is somehow a golden age of heavyweight boxing. I mean. Just doesn't make any sense, does it? It's absolutely mind blowing to think about. I mean, who did Anthony Joshua fight in his last fight? Who was his last title defense? It was Alexander Povetkin, another guy who's nearly 40 years old and was handily beaten by an old Klitschko. So this is the golden age that people keep talking about. Yet all these 40-year-old men and all these guys who are around in the Klitschko era and who lost to the Klitschkos, these guys are somehow top contenders. You know, these guys are number one ranked contenders in today's heavyweight division, and I've talked about it time and time again in the past, and it just blows my mind how people can't see this shit, how people are so blind to this, and how we keep hearing a narrative about how strong the heavyweight division is right now, and there's all this talent. Guys, the heavyweight division is pants right now. Okay, the heavyweight division is absolute crap. It's crap. All right. Again, the top contenders are all old men, and yeah, it's just a joke, man. But who would I like to see Anthony Joshua fight personally? Luis Ortiz, I've mentioned that's a shit fight. Luis Ortiz wouldn't last a couple of rounds. I mean, do you know what that fight would be like? It would be like when Anthony Joshua fought Charles Martin. Be the same type of thing. That straight right hand down the middle that Anthony Joshua throws, and that lead left hook. Luis Ortiz being 40 years old, being the shorter man, being the slower man, he would get caught with those shots and he would get taken out quickly. I'm telling you guys right now, if Anthony Joshua fights Luis Ortiz, that fight doesn't last 4 rounds. I'm telling you guys that right now. Trust me on that. So that's a mismatch. As for Michael Hunter, who seems to be one of the front runners, that fight for a few rounds would be interesting because Michael Hunter has very fast hands. He's obviously a cruiserweight moving up. He has that kind of David Haye vibe about him, where he's very quick and explosive, and he brought that cruiserweight speed up with him. And you saw when he faced Alexander Ustinov and Martin Bakole, who are two big, like strong heavyweights, he was able to completely dominate and school those guys using his speed and his explosiveness, and he was able to shut both of those guys out near enough and stopped them. He stopped Bakole in the last round, and he stopped. I believe he stopped Ustinov in the ninth round, if I remember rightly. So yeah, he's a guy who at least for a few rounds would make it interesting. But I still think at some point Anthony Joshua would take him out. You have to think at some point that would happen. But against Manwol Char, that again, that's a flipping mismatch. Manwol Char at his prime when he was younger might have been able to make it interesting, but Manwol Char is a completely shot fighter at this point, guys. Manwol Char has had hip surgery. He's been shot. He's coming off a long layoff. He hasn't fought since September of 2017, I believe. So he's been out of the ring for well over a year, and he's a guy who he's not one of these guys who lives the life Manwol Char. He's one of these guys who blows up in weight in between fights. And yeah, he's had loads of injuries to contend with. He's had a lot of political issues, with being kept out of the ring by that whole fucking stupid Fraser Kendo situation that seems to be over and done with now. But that whole situation with Fraser Kendo just messed Manwol Char's career around, so he hasn't been able to fight since winning the belt. So that's going to be a shit fight. Manwol Char will get taken out early by Anthony Joshua. It's probably a better fight than Luis Ortiz based on styles because Manwol Char is a bit more experienced than Ortiz. I think he's a bit tougher than Ortiz too. He's a guy who does go to the body, and he's a little bit he's quite handy in a shootout, Manwol Char. You could be on top of him, you could put him under pressure, and then he could surprise you with like a counter left hook. Look at what he did to Ustinov, for example, or a counter right hand. He's a guy who's a bit sneaky with his power shots, but I don't think he has a chance. Like I said, even Manwol Char at his prime was destroyed and stopped in 4 rounds, and I have that fight on my channel if you want to check it out. He was stopped in 4 rounds by Vitaly Klitschko, who was 42 years old at the time. He was knocked out cold by Alexander Povetkin not that long after. So yeah, Manwol Char, and let's not forget that the cruiserweight Maris Briedis knocked him out, and yeah, he had problems with Sefer Seferi and all that. I mean, he won that fight convincingly, but he wasn't able to get the stoppage. So, that shows me that Manwol Char has seen better days. He's past his prime. So I don't really want to see that fight, if I'm being honest. As for Derek Chisora, that would make sense from Anthony Joshua's perspective because Derek Chisora is very similar stylistically to Jarrell Miller. In fact, I think Derek Chisora is a better fighter than Jarrell Miller, if I'm being honest. I thought Jarrell Miller, and you guys might remember my prediction, I thought that Jarrell Miller was going to get absolutely brutalized by Joshua. the same would happen to Chisora, but Chisora is a bit more athletic and a bit more skilled than Jarrell Miller. So it would be an easy fight for AJ, but it would be a fight that would intrigue a lot of people in the UK, which is why it would make sense. To be honest, it would make more sense if that fight were to happen in the UK. But the opponent they're looking for is somebody who can get the crowd going in New York, so I can't see that happening. But it is what it is. I don't really know who it's going to be, and do I really care? Not particularly, to be honest. I mean, I was looking forward to the Jarrell Miller fight just for the sake of shutting Jarrell Miller up, but it seems that the positive drug tests have done that. I'm not going to condemn the guy for being on PEDs. I don't give a shit about PEDs. But what I will condemn Jarrell Miller and his team for is the way that they reacted afterwards, and how they were pointing the fingers at other people and accusing other people of being on PEDs, and how they tried to play the race card too. Trying to his promoter trying to say, oh, because he's an African American, that's why people are reacting like this. No, people are reacting like this because he was found with 3 different fucking PEDs in his system. That's why. So yeah, it is what it is. I guess out of the ones that have been mentioned, Michael Hunter to me would be the most interesting, just based on the fact that he brings something a little bit different to the table. Again, he's got that David Haye vibe about him, where he's a cruiserweight who brought up his speed, and it'll be interesting to see how Joshua does against Hunter in comparison to how Usyk did. Usyk had some problems early on with Hunter, but he came back and was able to dominate the later rounds and almost stop Hunter in the 12th round. So yeah, that's how that one goes, and it'll be interesting to kind of measure up how Joshua does in comparison to how Usyk did, and that might help to sell a Joshua Usyk fight in the future. So yeah, let me know what you guys think about this. Thanks for watching, and God bless.